she's not coming tonight.
Good evening. Today is September 26th, 2024, and the time is 6:30 p.m. I will now call the regular meeting of the ISD 191 Board of Education to order. Welcome to those of you in the audience and those watching online. Director Alt, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda? Moved by Director Connor.
Second.
Seconded by Director Marsal. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And the motion carries unanimously. First, we will receive a strategic roadmap dashboard overview report from Dr. Teresa Battle, Superintendent, and Amina Aftadal, Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment. Welcome.
Thank you, Vice Chair Werb, members of the board. Tonight, Director Oftedal and I will give our first report for the strategic dashboard. Just a reminder to the public, for our district strategic roadmap, we have metrics of success, and so we have several meetings where we will present different metrics on that dashboard. And so the agenda for tonight, we will cover our dashboard reporting, North Star accountability, which is our Minnesota state accountability for federal accountability and state, Infinite Systems Orgometrics. I will share a little bit about that. That was introduced at a board workshop, and that is to help us with getting more information about our employees, their perspective on the district. So we'll start with the dashboard reporting. Just a reminder of our strategic directions. You will see at the top there: 4, creating space and opportunity for each and every voice to be heard, and then the specific metrics and how we are sharing that information and the dates. The second one, actively leading by developing and sustaining a diverse and equitable education system. Third, supporting and leveraging innovation to improve student outcomes and district culture. And the fourth strategic direction, engaging our community to ensure a common understanding at our strategic roadmap and district work to support it. So tonight, I will turn it over to Director Oftedal, which will go through the Minnesota Accountability System, North Star, and the identification of schools receiving support.
Thank you, Dr. Battle, Vice Chair Werb, and members of the board. Thank you for the time this evening. I just want to point out that the District Strategic Dashboard, it is our means to share with our community some key indicators of how well we are meeting the broad school board goals for the organization. Each of the 4 areas has the specific measures identified on this visual. The reporting also aligns with the World's Best Workforce, which has been renamed to Comprehensive Achievement and Civic Readiness, and the Achievement and Integration Reporting. So we've tried to roll all of those reports in together and have a really aligned reporting, and you can see the dates of when each of those metrics will be reported. The Minnesota State North Star Accountability System was put into place in alignment with the federal ESEA legislation and with the key purpose to identify schools for support and publicly report our student data. Some highlights from this year's cycle: Edward Neal will complete its final year of support in this identification cycle, with the past 2 years of indicators moving them from the support category into so into the next cycle. So we're pleased with the progress that Ed Neal has made. Sky Oaks continues to work on its targets around students with IEPs and their reading achievement. And both sites, Edward Neal and Sky Oaks, have been working collaboratively with an assigned support staff member from the Department of Education and the Regional Centers of Excellence, who provides technical support for them. Their collaborative work with the Regional Centers of Excellence provides that staff person to work alongside with the principal and their building leadership team to provide resources, professional development, guidance on goals, and strategic evaluation. And so we've been really, really pleased with that particular partnership and the work that the principals have done with those support staff. BOZ, our alternative high school, continues to be identified along with many other alternative high schools across the state for comprehensive support, with the indicator focused on the four-year graduation rates. BHS is a partner in that identification, as it is the primary feeder school for BOZ, and our state-provided support works both with BHS and BOZ to really discuss and examine the root causes of students who may not be meeting that four-year graduation rate, and working with the root cause with staff at BHS and the support needed for BOZ. Again, that's been a really positive partnership, and the principals at both of those schools have been actively engaged with that technical support. Some highlighted pieces, I've got them organized as the accountability indicators. The first of the accountability indicators in the North Star system is reading and math achievement. The reading and math data for North Star are calculated somewhat differently than the straight proficiency scores that we might have reported out in August with the MCA data release. While still using MCA data, these charts reflect a more specific enrollment criteria, and so different students might be included in some score reports than others. However, students who did not complete the test, or even if they had a formal opt-out from their parents, are considered non-proficient in this state accountability measure. So kind of keep that in mind. The district scores demonstrate some slight growth in measures in both math and reading, but the largest gains are in reading, while the state numbers remained flat. So you can see that the scores for reading have almost remained steady for both the district and remained exactly the same for the state. However, we saw some significant growth in our scores for our reading achievement, and this includes all students who meet the enrollment criteria in grades 3 through 11, who would have been considered participating in the test. The second indicator for the state accountability is progress for English learners. So after general achievement in reading and math, the progress of English learners is considered next in the accountability identification. The average amount of progress for English learners toward their individual goals was flat from the prior year, both in our district and statewide. You can see that our district numbers are very similar to statewide numbers as well. However, the percentage of English learners who met or exceeded their annual target on the access score. So the first one is the average. The second one is the percent of individual students, and each student is provided with an individual target each year for language proficiency. And in our district, 28% of the students were able to meet that annual target, which is a slight growth up from the 26%. The numbers from the state, however, remain fairly flat. The third indicator or accountability measure is one that has a strong focus statewide, is consistent attendance. Consistent attendance is defined as students who attend 90% or more of their enrolled time. One indicator to keep in mind is that in this number, only students who are enrolled at least half of the school year are considered as part of our consistent attendance number. So in consistent attendance, we saw significant growth from 49 to 54% of students meeting that consistent attendance number, whereas the state also saw a very similar increase. The numbers for 2022, however, are a composite number. and combines the information from 2018 and 2019. So it's not a straight, it's a calculated number, not actually a real person-to-person number, which is about how all of the North Star accountability numbers are calculated. It is a straightforward calculation, though, of average daily attendance divided by the average daily membership. So how we calculate our average daily attendance is very important, and making sure that our ADM numbers are very clear and accurate as well. So with those being our data points, one of the questions would be, so how do we as a district respond? While the state accountability reports are valuable to us to evaluate overall organization growth and progress, our own internal measures and evaluations in the past year have guided us toward the following actions. We haven't waited for the state reports. We do have our own indicators and our own evaluation measures, and we are constantly working through our continuous improvement models. The first is, of course, one that this board has heard and supported very much over the last couple of years, is a focus on literacy and reading. Supported by the mandates of the READ Act, it shows us continuing to expand the implementation of our foundational literacy from grades K2 to grades 3, 4, and 5. In addition, we will be moving to implementation of the foundational phonemic awareness curriculum in our VPK classrooms as well. Along with over 300 teachers in our district are participating in the carry-all training on the science of reading, and we are targeting reading intervention for our middle schools, providing additional training and support over the summer to those interventionists, and increasing the number of interventionists at our middle school as well. Yeah, I'm still working. Our middle school math teachers last year piloted an online intervention system platform last year, and this year we had really good success numbers with that, and so this year all our math teachers in the middle school will be utilizing this personalizing math platform known as Exact Path as a way to provide additional support for students who are lacking foundational math skills during their daily math extended block. So we've expanded the access to that, and did very targeted training with that with teachers over the summer and during the workshop. And so we'll be continuing to monitor the success for that and see if we see some growth in our middle school math numbers. High school math is taking part in an intensive math instruction professional development across all of the professional development days this year, and looking at high engagement and foundational skills. And then it's part of their 9 through 12 math curriculum review, with the new math standards being released from MDE. And finally, the school district joins others in a collaborative effort to explore strategies to address and strengthen attendance for all students. This is our collaborative effort as part of a statewide consortium and pilot as we work through and have our staff focusing on those strategies with other school districts.
I have the next two slides. So Infinity Systems is an organization we've contracted with to assess staff's perspectives on our organizational health. The opposite would be a very toxic culture as well in climate, and so we're going to get the perspectives of our staff members. So this is the update since your May 23rd board work session, where you learned some details about the survey. We are going to have an equity survey, and that'll be later in the year. So the first survey is focused on organizational health. So we have the draft survey completed. We did add some specific 191 questions from our annual survey that we give to staff. So we'll be able to still track that. We had our wonderful Director of Technology, Rachel Gorton, and staff review all of our data security protocols. So that has been completed. We will launch the survey starting Monday, and it will be open through October 14th. We have shared information with our site leaders, and we will have support for them if they get questions. A message from me will go out tomorrow, as part of the 191 update that we have after every regular board meeting. Once our staff members complete the survey, they will not receive a reminder, but if the survey is not completed, they'll receive a reminder. And we only record the response. They only record the response. The next slide goes more into the details that the board received in the work session. So when we, according to Infinity Systems, what really are the components of organizational health? So on the left, you see that alignment. So of course, are they aware of our district mission and vision? The communication, creativity. As you know, we are a very innovative district, so are we creative? Do they see us that they're able to really be innovative and creative? Are they able to be empowered? If you look at literature on how you have the most effective employees, they have to feel some ownership. Of course, accountability, not only for their self-accountability, but to the system and to their colleagues. And then leadership. How are they seen as leaders? How do they interact with informal and informal leadership? And so there are 9 components to the scales. There are 21 statements. We did some testing. It really takes only about 10 minutes. I think it's going to be 12 or 13 now that we added our questions to there, so it may take up to 15 minutes. And it's the Likert scale from 1 to 10, whether you strongly agree with this statement, disagree for the 1, or 10 strongly agree. We will receive an analysis. We will use this data. We will share it with you. I think it's November 7th we have slated. We should have all the results, and if there's a change in compilation or analysis, I'll let you know. But we will receive a very comprehensive analysis based on these components where we are. And then later in the year, I'll go a little bit more in depth with the equimetrics. Since we have been a culturally proficient school district, we lead with really being inclusive as one of our values. And so looking forward to having that survey results in the spring. And with that, I think it's a thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Do board members have any questions or comments? Yes? No?
Go ahead. I was pointing at you. It's
Okay.
like a signal, sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you, Chair Werb. Thank you for the report. Appreciate it, both. Always good to get some data in front of us. Now, the data that was on that last slide, Dr. Battle, that was just an example. That was not actual data from our district, was it?
Oh, no.
Okay.
They're just showing you an example.
An example,
No,
okay.
not at all. And so that's what you'll get. You'll get those scores, just to show an example.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, no problem. Emina, on the accountability with testing, what is the family opt-out rate?
We usually have a family opt-out rate of less than 1%, and it tends to be higher at the secondary level than at the elementary level.
Okay.
And we have some sites that have a higher rate than others, but it is very minimal.
Gotcha.
Now, that's our formal opt-out rate. That's not necessarily our participation rates.
Right.
True. Yep.
So some people may not fill out the opt-out form, but then they don't show up.
Just don't
Call
participate.
them
So
sick that
what's
day.
that? Yeah, so that's.
What would that be?
So our participation rates in our elementary schools in the MCAs is usually 95% or above, which better reflects our opt-out rate. At our high school, our participation rates, depending on whether it's 10th or 11th grade, can range anywhere from 76% to 82%.
Okay. And then, consistent attendance, I'm assuming that this was a calculated measure, obviously.
Yes.
So as we calculate consistent attendance year over year, we haven't changed the calculation or the practice behind the calculation.
So the consistent attendance numbers that are reported to you are the state consistent attendance numbers that are provided to us. They may be different from our daily attendance numbers or our average attendance numbers. And so when you ask for attendance, you need to be we need to be very clear about what the measure we're providing to you. We have tried to be, at least in the SPA reports and in the dashboard reports, very clear about that we're using the state consistent attendance reporting number.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So that there's comparability.
And other note, Director, Alt, and members of the board, this is a new definition from the Elementary, Secondary, and Elementary Act
Over the last 2 years.
for
it
the
has been.
last 2 years. So it's not apples to apples comparison prior to 2023 or 2022.
22 and 23 are comparable,
Roll, right.
but
Prior
prior
to
to
that.
that, it was a different
Because we
calculation.
received the question, what was it before COVID? Different measure.
Different measure.
So we're starting over. It's a new baseline. Thank you.
And my last comment is really for the staff that will be receiving the survey, that, as a board, we really value hearing from our staff. And I would encourage everyone to, take that survey seriously. Please take it, because we want to hear from you. And this is a scientific way for us to be able to better evaluate the health and wellness and inclusivity of our district. So please do complete it.
Director Hume, did you have any questions?
No.
Okay.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So just a quick question. So on the attendance, is that going to become an indicator for the North Star support identification?
It, as
Or
of,
is already?
yes, as of this particular cycle, of which we're in year 3, it is one of the final indicators. And so they look first at achievement. If you don't meet the achievement indicator, then they'll look at the next one. If you meet the achievement indicator, they'll look at the next one and the next one. And so it doesn't come into play until the third layer.
So they have percentages where there's a threshold?
Yes, they have
Okay.
thresholds for each of the indicators.
Okay. Thank you.
Just one question from myself on the employee employee survey. Is there room for people to make comments? Is it just can people? Yeah. Put in
Yes.
comments. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry. Are
Chair,
they allowed
we're
to make
members of
comments?
the board, yes.
Okay.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
So I think if you recall during the workshop, when I went to the presentation at MASA and the 2 superintendents, part of the analysis, there was a comment. They thought they were really being inclusive for people who had special needs, but the employee commented how difficult it was being, if I remember, not visually impaired, but deaf or hard of hearing. The comments were barriers throughout the workday. So yes,
Okay.
there are. And we
Okay.
will read them.
Very good. All right. Thank you for this report. Up next, we will receive an update on the levy referendum information campaign from our Director of Communications, Aaron Tinklenberg. Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you, Vice Chair Werb, members of the board, and Dr. Battle. If I can get this to work. Yeah, thanks for having me here tonight and provide this update about how the information campaign is going and provide some other information for our viewers about the referendum. So I'll go through 4 items tonight, some overview and key facts about the levy referendum renewal itself, which will be not new information for any of you up here, but again, just kind of sharing what we're sharing, some of the information we're sharing with the public about the levy so that they understand it as they get prepared to vote. I'll talk a little bit about our communication goals and our strategies and tactics that we're using to get that information out, and then share a little bit about voting information, again, for you, but also for our audience so that they can find the information they need to be able to go cast their votes. So some tech levy basics. We'll often refer to it just as tech levy renewal, but it's officially called the capital projects levy, so people might see that information out there. It's important to note that this is one of the ways that voters can approve additional funding for schools. You might hear bonds for building, levy for learning. Tech levy is literally just for technology and tech-related staff and support. So if this is approved by voters again, renewed, that's where the money would go. This was originally approved in 2015 as part of Vision 191, and part of a big project at that time. And at that time, voters approved it for 10 years. So if it's not renewed by 2025, it will expire and we would no longer have that funding. So this particular tech levy, as I mentioned, voters are being asked to whether or not to renew the tech levy that was originally approved in 2015. It currently provides about $4.6 million per year. So that's a significant amount of funding for tech and tech-related support and staff. When we talk about what that money goes towards, it's really a wide variety of things. It's everything from the learning devices, the Chromebooks that students have, and some of the devices that staff have as well, to the learning programs that we use, like Schoology and Seesaw and WeVideo. So all of those ways that students stay connected to their materials and to their classrooms, and that parents stay connected as well. It goes to support our tech staff. As Dr. Battle mentioned earlier, really important, obviously, that we have those staff members in place to keep everything running and support staff members and students as they use their technology. And then something people don't usually see, but that is also really important, it supports our cybersecurity efforts. We have a lot of really important data that we need to keep safe. And Tech Director Rachel Gordon would probably like me to mention that educational institutions are actually one of the most attacked institutions out there, because we are data rich, and we're not a multi-billion-dollar international firm that can spend as much as we want on tech security. So we're maybe an easier target. So fortunately, we've done a really good job of staying safe, and knock on wood, we'll be able to keep doing that. So again, this would, if it is approved by voters, the renewal, it would renew that funding for 10 more years. People, of course, ask, what would this do to my taxes? Because it's a renewal, there would be no tax increases. The tax rate would stay the same, continuing and going forward. Just some places where people can get more information, of course, on our website. If they just go to isd191.org/referendum, or just to the front page, they'll see it right away. They can send us information or questions, concerns, and just try to get in touch with us by sending an email, referendum@isd191.org. Call the hotline and leave a message, 707-2019. And then coming up next week, we do have 2 public presentations on the 30th and on the October 3rd. Where we'll be presenting, again, a little bit more in-depth information and engaging in conversation with anybody who wants to come in and learn that information. People can also go to the website and request a group presentation. And so if you're part of a homeowners association, if you're part of a place of worship, if you're in a scout troop, if you're, have a dance troupe in your local community and you want us to come out and give you a presentation, we'll be happy to do that. You can just put in the request there, either by email or through the form on the website. So about the communications, our big overarching goals are simply to provide clear and accurate information to everyone in the district about the referendum, and then to support clear and consistent message delivery through various communications channels. So a lot of people will get information from us, but a lot of people will get information from their neighbors or their locals, their teachers and their other staff members that they know. So we want to provide that message delivery through various communications channels. As I mentioned, ensure all employees and key stakeholders have the information they need so they can share it, and comply, of course, with all legal requirements for holding and communicating about a referendum, of which there are many. In terms of how we're going to do that, we'll actually produce all kinds of materials that can just be duplicated so people know they can get pieces of material, and I'll show those in a second, from us. They know it's got accurate information. They know they can share that out to their classrooms, to their neighbors, to their family, everything else like that. We also want to do localized communication. We'll certainly do and have been and will continue to push out information from the district level, but we know people really trust the people that are closest to them, and so we want to put those people's hands, information in those people's hands, and let them communicate or work in small groups, like I said, Rotary, homeowners associations, any small groups, and engage key communicators as well, because we know that's where people will go to get information they trust. So some of the things that we've already done or will be doing over the next month as well, we conducted what we call site team training in early September. What this means is that at each of our buildings, we sort of train and deputize a small group of people to be our communications department out at those buildings. And so that we do a little training session. They spend some time planning how they're going to communicate to their families and their program participants. And then we get them the information so they can do that. We've sent out news releases, of course. The superintendent sent a message to families in early September. We've already started conducting some small group meetings, and buildings will be doing presentations at PTOs, at staff meetings, and other affinity groups and things like that. Of course, social media, and then, of course, our newsletters as well. And then what's coming up, I mentioned the public presentations next week. We will have a legal notice mailing that'll go out, so at least one mailed notice will go out to every property taxpayer in the district with, again, the basics information about the referendum. And we'll have more community group meetings, and then we'll send out, especially as we get closer to the actual election day, though voting, of course, has already started, we'll send out more reminders just to people to vote. I mentioned the materials, and I'll show some now, and you'll start to see these pop up all over the place. We have a one-page fact sheet that just kind of goes over, again, the very basics of it. We have those printed in English, Spanish, and Somali. We also have bookmarks, which are available, and I'm sure we'll go home with students, or will be handed out at various events. A nice, easy way to remind people about the tech levy renewal. Again, available in English, Spanish, and Somali. We also have, I didn't bring one here, but a sample ballot, so people can see what's going to be on the ballot and know what each piece of it means. Again, English, Spanish, and Somali. Of course, the website is the place to go for all the information. We have a standard presentation, which you got a little bit piece of today. That's what we'll present next week at the public presentations. But we also have it recorded right now in English and in Spanish on the website. The Somali version of the presentation will be done in the next week, is my guess, and we'll get that up on the website as well. And then we also have a little animated video that runs through the basics that's available on the website and our YouTube channel also. So some basics about voting. Election day is November 5th, and polls are open that day, 7 to 8 a.m. Early voting has already started last Friday, the 20th, and runs through November 4th. Of course, people must be eligible to vote in the U.S. and a resident of District 191 on Election day. People can, of course, we're not running this election ourselves, so you can't come here to vote, unfortunately. But you can go to mnvotes.org and find your polling location or learn how to cast an early voting ballot. That's the information about the campaign. I'm happy to take any questions.
So do board members have any questions or comments? Director?
More of a comment. I trust with parent-teacher conferences coming up in mid-October, the printed materials will be on hand in all the buildings for parents.
Yeah.
At that point?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. It actually is something I meant to mention earlier when I was talking about the materials. Almost all of the printed materials, maybe all of them, are here now, and we actually had a couple of volunteers from students from the high school come over and help us organize them tonight. So they're going to be going out to the schools tomorrow in interoffice mail. So they'll be available starting probably next week, but certainly in time for conferences.
Awesome.
And looking through all of the site team plans, pretty much everybody mentioned conferences as
Sure.
a place to get the information out.
I was just double checking the calendar, saying, oh, it's 3 weeks before the election. That's good timing.
Yes. Yeah. And that's exactly how the site team, we're not asking them to do something special or plan new events or anything else like that, but take a look at what you have going on and think of that as an opportunity to get information out to folks.
That's, in my experience, the best way to
Yeah.
promote almost anything is what are things that are already happening and can we piggyback? So,
Perfect.
Thank you for that.
Dr. Alt?
Thank you. Yes, thank you for this presentation, Erin. Good to be able to see, what our community is going to be hearing from our staff. Would you be able to elaborate on the cybersecurity side of the investment, the tech investment, increase over time, general?
Probably not the person
not.
to ask about that. Yeah, Director Gordon would have to come in and share more of the details. I'm sure that it has increased over time.
Yeah.
I know that she's shared with us some graphic images that have shown times that we've been under attack, which happens very regularly. There are phishing attacks all the time. And obviously having the systems that we have in place is really important. And then I know the training that we do, really the most important thing we do is training with people so that they know how to recognize an attack and not fall for it.
Yeah, great, thank you. And then the final question, understanding that we have a large portion of our community is on fixed incomes. What does the tech levy contribute to taxes on a house, say, valued at $200,000?
Yeah, that's, the amount is the same as it was actually when we advertised in 2015. So about a little less than $6 per month it contributes to taxes on a house of value $200,000, $575 to be a little more precise. And that, of course, because the rate is the same, that's the same number today.
Awesome, thank you.
Just for, the public, for informational purposes, how often are we replacing Chromebooks? How often do they get serviced?
That is
Can
an
you answer
excellent
that?
question, also probably for Director Alt.
Okay.
I think unless, Dr. Battle, I want to say they have a regular schedule. It's a 3 or 5 year replacement cycle, but they, Director Gordon and the tech team have
Okay.
a regular cycle that they replace that on, for sure.
All right, thank you.
Just had a quick comment. I just want to say that I appreciate that you have it, your literature in all different languages, too, in different languages.
Yeah, thanks. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Lastly, are there any reports from board members regarding board committees, appointments, and school assignments? Oh, Director Marcel?
Yes. So the Policy Review Committee had met this past Tuesday, the 24th. We're still going through a lot of the policies that had changes due to the last legislative session. We're wrapping those up, and they'll be appearing in regular board meetings as we go. And our next meeting is scheduled for October 22nd. And that concludes my report.
And the AMSD report from September 6th, when we had our last meeting, it was the 50th anniversary of AMSD. So it started in 1974. I'm just going to give you some highlights, with only 7 counties or districts. Then our presenter that at that meeting was Peter Letterman. What he does is statewide economic surveys on all economic issues. And there's big breakdown between schools and districts, and then also some little bit goes into politics also with Republicans and Democrats. So he did some on U.S. issues. I'm just going to, there was a lot of issues mentioned, but I'm just going to point out a few that I thought were interesting. They polled, they polled teachers and parents, and, sorry, just a minute here. Oh, on some interesting points. One of them was, should vaccines be required for children in public schools? So 70, and I'm not going to tell you if it was parents or teachers, maybe, but anyway, so 76% of that poll said yes. Extra tax dollars to school districts, 41% of people said yes, so not quite half. 58% of people think education equity is good, and the quality of education. Increased taxes property taxes for schools. 79% of parents agreed, but you need 80% to pass this proposal, so very close. Parents sending their kids to private schools with funding, 43% agreed with that. ARM teachers, so there was a breakdown, and it was a tie, actually, between parents and non-parents. And what was that percentage? Let's see. That percentage was 43%, I'm sorry. 67% of parents feel limited cell phone use in schools is appropriate. 74% trust teachers with their children's care, and that's down from 81%. Parent group versus teachers unions, 42% to 38% of parents trust the teacher's perspective more than the teacher's union. And again, just a lot of voting data statistics. So that concludes my report. You can find more information, of course, on the AMSD website. Okay, so for the for legislative committee, I don't have notes on that because Leslie is our chairperson for that. But in her absence, we did meet with Lindsay Port, our House of Representative. Had a really good conversation with her. She was very interested in a lot of topics that are going on with our school district. We had quite an in-depth conversation, so many topics. I wish I'd taken notes, but I'm sure Leslie had notes, but since she's not here to present them, I'll see if I can think of some. But mostly she was just interested in our perspective of how our district is going, what we needed, what we're yielding, what we feel we're doing well with, and what kind of things we need in the upcoming for upcoming proposals from our government that she can propose. She wants to. She said she has an open door policy. Anyone who wants to talk to her, she's always open to ideas and things that we need on a person-to-person level, parents, teachers, anything. And let's see, we kind of told her some things that we'd like to see done. I don't have notes on that, I'm sorry, because we had quite a few issues. But anyway, it was very interesting talking with her, and we got a lot accomplished and a lot of questions and back and forth answers. So that completes the report for our legislative report.
Thank you for your reports. This concludes the information portion of our meeting. Now we will move to the business portion of the board meeting, starting with the consent agenda. Although board action is required, it is generally unnecessary to hold discussion on these items. In the event a board member wishes to discuss an item, that item will be moved for separate consideration. Do board members wish to remove any items from the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved?
Moved by Director Alt,
Second.
seconded by Director Hume. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. Tonight, we are being asked to certify the proposed property tax levy for taxes payable in 2025 and authorize the clerk to execute the levy certification forms in the maximum amount, and to also schedule the Truth in Taxation hearing on December 12th, 2024, to be held during the regularly scheduled board meeting beginning at 6:30 p.m. Stacy Sovine, Executive Director of Administrative Services, is presenting the recommendation. Welcome, Stacy.
Good evening, Vice Chair Werb, members of the board, Dr. Battle. Each year at this point in time, we begin a three-step process to certify property tax levies for taxes payable in the upcoming year. The first step is to certify the proposed property taxes. Again, as Vice Chair Werb has mentioned, we will be seeking the maximum amount because those amounts get adjusted through MDE a number of throughout the next couple of months, refinement, adjustments, any other impact that may occur. The second step in the process is the truth in taxation hearing. That will be on December 12, 2024 at 6:30 here at Diamond Head. And then the final step will be for the board to do the final certification also at December, usually at that same meeting. So that's the three-step process. We are anticipating at this time a decrease in our local proposed property taxes for a decrease of approximately 4% from the district after board action tonight. So that will be payable in 2025, which will impact our fiscal year 2026 budget and funding purposes. The recommendation has been read. Would you like me to read it again?
No.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Moved by Director Hume, seconded by Director Marsal. Is there any discussion?
I just have a question. So you mentioned just a second ago that it's likely to decrease this year?
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit, is it because of declining enrollment, or are there other reasons for that?
Primarily, it's the declining enrollment that feeds itself through a number of the different fields on the worksheet.
Okay,
So that's what we're attributing it to at this point in time.
that was my question. Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. Next, we are being asked to approve a revised long-term facility maintenance plan and resolution for ISD 191. Presenting the resolution this evening will be Dave Lake, Director of Operations. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you. Vice Chair Werb, Directors, and Superintendent Battle, each year we come to you seeking approval for our long-term facility maintenance plan. This is a 10-year comprehensive outlook. We put items on the schedule that are approximately $100,000 or more, but we have as many as 50 smaller projects that we complete each year. The amount we are looking at is taxable in the upcoming year and is payable in fiscal year 2026. This is a 10-year map where we make adjustments based on the given priorities at the time. The intent is to give the board and our community an idea of where we are headed and allows us the flexibility to move things around as needed. Fiscal year 2026 estimates $582,000 of health and safety projects, along with $4.3 million in alternative facility projects, equaling $4,882,392 in total. Since the board approved the initial LTFM budget in June, we have identified an additional $2,176,900 needed at Burnsville High School and nearby district warehouse site. Those needs include main gym bleacher replacements, replacing the district-wide freezer for food and nutrition services, a new emergency generator to replace the 25-year-old diesel generator that currently powers Burnsville High School, and lastly, there are necessary block wall repairs to be done at the exterior of the district warehouse. My recommendation is that the Board of Education adopts the resolution approving the revised long-term facilities maintenance program budget for FY 2026. Any questions?
Is there a motion to approve the revised long-term facility maintenance plan and resolution as presented in the board packet?
So moved?
Moved by Director Alt,
Second.
seconded by Director Marsal. Is there any discussion? Director Alt?
Just one comment. Thank you, Dave, for being nimble about identifying new needs. I would much rather that we revise the LTFM when you determine that it is needed. And you do such an awesome job, you and your team, with maintaining our facilities that while this is unusual, it certainly is welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Because this is a resolution, we will hold a roll call vote. Sarah, will you please make the roll call?
Director Hume,
Aye.
Director Connor,
Aye.
Director Werb,
Aye.
Director Marsal,
Aye.
and Director Alt.
Aye.
This resolution was declared duly passed and adopted. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Nay.
We just voted.
Oh,
Voted twice.
It's okay.
okay. The motion carries unanimously. This concludes new business. Next on our agenda is a work session to discuss refinancing bonds. Before starting that work session, I move that we take a brief recess and return to the diocese at 7:30? 7:30 to begin our work session. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Director Connor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. Please return to the dais at 7:30. Financing bonds. Joining us this evening for this discussion will be Stacy Sovine, Executive Director of Administrative Services, and Matthew Hammer, Eller's Senior Municipal Advisor. Welcome.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to let Matthew take over here in a moment, but we are wanting to update you on the process with our opportunity to refinance some bonds that are coming up. It's a multi-step process, lots of different moving pieces. And again, when we get into this is why we rely on Ellers to help us and be able to answer the questions. So with that, Matthew, take over.
Yes. Yeah, thanks, Stacy. Matthew Hammer from Ellers, financial advisor for the school district. I was just sitting here reminiscing. I was out here last time during the Truth and Taxation hearing presenting about the district's levy, and really tonight, really what we're talking about is hopefully reducing future debt service levies for taxpayers, right? So that's the big picture of what we're trying to accomplish. We have a lot of information in the presentation that gets into detail, but at a very high level. Really the goal is similar to if you own a property and are refinancing it and trying to lower the cost that you're paying on that mortgage, right, or lower the payments. That's in essence what a refunding or a refinancing for a school district or municipality is, as well as we're trying to issue new bonds at a lower cost than the bonds that you currently have. Big picture, that's the concept. We have a lot of information, and as Stacy said, there's a lot of steps in the process. Tonight is to provide you guys information about kind of where we're at and next steps and what we'll be looking to do at the meeting on October 10th, and then as we look forward to the opportunity as we move forward. So I'll dive right in. Certainly ask questions as we go here, but we're gonna talk about some details from the existing bonds and how this is gonna play out. So the district's the bonds that we're looking at are the bonds that were issued back in 2015 as part of the February 2015 election. Those bonds were actually after the election passed, were issued in April of that year. They were issued for originally $64 million in total. We have about $52 million, a little bit more than $50 million that is subject to call or remaining that we could look at refinancing now as we get to the call date. And you can kind of see the details of what this initial issue was issued for. So this is a process that we've partaken with the district a number of times over the last 10 years. I look back at some of the details. We've been helping the district manage their debt service levies, our existing debt commitments, and to date, over the last 10 years, we've saved about $12 million as part of that process. We're looking to kind of add to that as we look at this issue, and there is some opportunity as we move forward, albeit the market conditions at this time have some ups and downs, so we've got some things to consider as we kind of move forward as part of the process. Bond issues are issued with what we call a call provision when they're originally issued, so you can't just immediately go refinance those issues, right? So that might be a question that folks have as rates for municipal bond rates or securities were selling for really low interest rates a few years ago. Until we get to that call date or within 90 days of that call date, you would have to issue a taxable advance refunding. And tax exempt rates are typically lower, right? So if you were able to issue those bonds with tax exempt rates like school districts are, you get that benefit to borrow at a lower rate. If you do it more than 90 days ahead of that call date, you have to issue them taxable. So taxable rates really have to be a lot lower. Right now, we're going to be hitting that time frame. So the call date on this bond issue is February 1 of 2025. So you can close on a bond issue up to 90 days before that call date or any time after and reissue new bonds, right, at tax exempt rates to basically, in essence, pay off those bonds. And we'll show you some of the details of what we're looking at for potential savings on this bond issue as we roll forward in the coming slides. These are some of the details of just what I talked about. The final maturity right now on the issue goes all the way up to 2036. So there's about 11 years left on this issue. We'll be looking at refinancing this issue, and likely if we're able to refinance it, we would be able to put another call date on in the future and have another opportunity depending on market conditions look like out at a future date. This just touches on the overall refunding and kind of what I already touched on. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but conceptually, right, we're trying to reduce costs. And I think a common question that'll get asked is, where does that money go? It can't go back into the district's general fund budget. So whenever you refinance a bond issue, it has to go back to reduce future debt service levies for property owners, right? So, and when the district's talking about being able to save dollars as part of this refinancing, it by law has to go back and reduce tax levies, and that's what will be happening as part of the process. So let's look at some numbers. Right now, this is an analysis based on current market rates back on September 17th. We did look at this today ahead of coming into the meeting and just to see if there's been any change. We're within 1 basis point. Basically right where we're at from the market that we were seeing back on the 17th. So this would save about $1.4 million to date if we were in market, right? Or about $130,000 a year. Overall, you can see that what we call the sensitivity located on the bottom. That's if the interest rates change up or down by 0.10%. That impacts that overall savings by about $345,000. So that's pretty significant and what I would call fairly sensitive, right, to market changes as we move forward. And we'll talk about that a little bit in our timeline because we want the board to look at taking action to move forward this at your October 10th meeting. And we have a schedule laid out here, but we're going to be watching this as we move forward. Because if market conditions are changing one way or the other, do we want to make sure we keep moving, or if for some reason rates go up, we can always push the sale off and still likely have an opportunity sometime when we get into next calendar year. So this just gives you a trend of where municipal bond rates have been over the last year. This gives you a sense of that volatility that we saw last January at this time. You saw rates come down pretty substantially. So they came down by almost 100 basis points, which is a trend that oftentimes happens each year as municipal bonds have call dates of February 1st. So as investors are looking to get back into municipal securities, they're often, those bonds are getting called. So as districts are looking, or issuers are looking to issue new bonds, oftentimes those rates are dipping when we get to the end of a year or the start of a fiscal year or start of a new calendar year. This gives you a sense of what the 10-year trend has. And if you look at that drop a few years ago, that was historic low rates. The rates had never been that low, and they held that low during the COVID pandemic for quite some time. People would know that if you were trying to purchase a home when mortgage interest rates were really low at the same time. So those rates were really low for a period of time. Rates have come up, and now we've been trending back down. We're in a position right now from where you are at with your bond issue. If we can generate some savings as part of this issue at this time, it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to continue to pay at higher rates. So we're hoping to be able to save and manage those levies by issuing some new bonds at a lower cost and reduce costs for property owners in the district. When we talk about timeline, we wanted to have this discussion tonight so you guys had some information in front of you. You could ask any questions you have about the process. We would have the board take an initial action on what we call an intent resolution at your meeting on October 10th. And that really allows us to get moving with the process. And that allows us to start getting the steps in motion to get the work with Stacy and his team and Dr. Battle and getting information ready for the preliminary official statement to be able to take out to market. And then right now we would be looking at sailing on November 21st and then having the board award at their meeting later that night on the 21st. Those bonds would then close in this schedule on December 12th, and then the old bonds would be paid off as of February 1st, and the new bonds would take their place. So you'd have 2 bonds outstanding for a short period of time, but then those bonds would be able to be invested in an escrow account during that time, which would help offset any cost as part of that process.
Quick question.
Yes.
So we're kind of, some of our dates are sandwiched around another date that might impact interest rates.
Yep, and that's exactly the reason why I kind of led with, I call it uncertainty in the market, right? And uncertainty typically leads to some volatility. So this is something, as we continue on part of this process, right? We, as your advisor, are going to be watching different things that are happening in the market and be deciding whether this date makes sense as we move towards it or whether we push things off, right?
Yep.
And I think the important thing with this is it's not an emergency. We have time as part of this process. We're getting to that call date, right? But there's likely going to be a savings opportunity over the next 3 to 6 months, right? As part of this process, we'll be able to capture something depending on where markets are at that time.
Okay, thank you.
So, but that's front of mind, right?
Yep.
What could happen as part of this process over the next month? So, this is really the information we had high level. There's also an executive summary of all of the details, which we call our pre-sale report, that lays out the more detailed assumptions as part of the financing. I won't read through that for you guys, but if you have any questions in regards to that, there's similar information, the timelines in there, and there's some more detailed schedules if there's any questions about any part of that information. We've also included a draft of the resolution that will be brought forward to the board next month. Like I said, that provides the authorization to start moving forward with the process, right? But doesn't necessarily tie us into this exact timeline, and we'll be able to have some flexibility to move based on what we're seeing in the markets and what we think makes the most sense as we move forward as part of the process. So with that, I can answer any questions folks have. I think big picture, right? We're trying to manage the district's tax levies and save money, like we're always trying to do as part of this process. We're continually monitoring your district's outstanding commitments on an ongoing basis like we have over the last number of years, and we're getting to the point now on this issue where we've got that opportunity to look at lowering future tax levies for property owners and manage those as we move forward to reduce the cost.
I just have a comment. I appreciate all the information that you shared, both, in the packet as well as in your presentation. Of course, very thorough. I'm cautiously optimistic, given our discussion tonight with the sensitivity of the market. I mean, this is an opportunity to save our taxpayers $1.4 million on top of all the $12 million over the last 10 years, as well as improve our Moody's rating, right? I think I read in the packet we would be improving our we could improve our Moody's
rating. Yeah, you'd be going through another underlying rating process. Yeah. They would do another rating call, right, as part of that process and then based on your financial outlook and those things, that would impact what that rating could be.
Which is really lovely in my opinion. So cautiously optimistic.
Yes. Questions for me?
I don't have any questions. I was going to echo what Director Alt said, that I think this is a good thing. We did this a couple of times in my first couple of years on the board, and as you said, it's had a pretty significant impact in saving the taxpayers of the community $12 million over 10 years. So it's good that there are still opportunities to continue to do that. It's great. Thank you.
That's for sure.
And to dovetail on your comment, it's opportunities like this where it's nice to be on a board that can say we're not just asking for money. We are doing our best to manage our finances, fulfill our fiduciary role, and seek every opportunity, in this case, refinancing the bonds.
Want to be good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars, as a
Precisely.
wise person once told me.
Yes, exactly.
Any other questions? I guess having concluded our work session and having no further agenda items, I now call to adjourn this meeting of the ISD 191 Board of Education.
Awesome.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.